Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee, and today is Wednesday, October 15th. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we are, can you believe it? We're in week 8. Where has the time gone? I don't know, but this week is lining up to be a huge one from a recruiting perspective. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go behind the scenes of some of the biggest visits in America. Also, with these coaches' rumors swirling, we got flips going down or potentially going down. We're going to cover it all. We got the latest updates on this edition of the Inside Scoop. But before we get going, guys, got to do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel because this is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, we got a loaded show today. We're going to hit Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska, and Georgia. But first, the James Franklin era came to an abrupt end on Sunday with the news of his firing, and since then, we've been covering Penn State from a recruiting perspective, and, you know, it's only been 3 or 4 days. There's been so many developments, but I'm sure to Penn State fans, this feels like 3 or 4 weeks. So rumors have been swirling about a replacement, but in the meantime, recruits have been leaving. We'll see what happens there with the replacement. Eventually, that will happen. Matt Rule's been, his name's been bound about. Matt Campbell's another one, among others. Now, we're going to talk in this video more about the recruiting fallout. There's quite a difference when it comes to the way the 2026 class reacted to the James Franklin firing and the way that the 2027 class has acted. 2026, 22 commits remain. The 17th ranked class. Yeah, still a top 20 class, not a ton of movement. Nittany Lions did lose 2026 wide receiver LeVar Keys. He was the top rated pass catcher in the class, but for the most part, so far, and it might not be over. Like I said, it's only been 3 or 4 days, but you got to assume a lot of those reactions, the decommits, are going to happen in the wake of the firing. And now that guys have had a couple nights to sleep on it, we'll see what happens. Now, when it comes to the 2027 classes, Penn State had one of the best in the country. That was before the weekend. And they had 3 recruits in the top 32. So if the 2027 class ended today, all 3 of them would have been 5 stars. You had Kamon Spell, Leighton Von Brandt, and Khalil Taylor, all inside that top 32. All have decommitted. So they are all gone. We got some more updates from this week, though. The 26 wide receiver, Davian Brown, issued a statement. He's no longer committed. He thanked Penn State for believing in him, but in his best interest, it was to reopen his recruitment. You can't really blame him there. On, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, was the 3rd decommitment from the 2026 class. Jazir Hart, he's from Virginia. We thought he might stay on. He kind of said it was a business, but in the end, he's decided now to decommit. Cornerback Julian Peterson, he's looking around. UNC visit on tap, but I believe he remains committed officially. He's on that commit list. Running back Messiah Mickens has said that his eyes are open. He's been hit up by a couple big-time schools. And, hey, this is what's going to happen. If you got good players on your commit list, like a Messiah Mickens, expect Georgia, Ohio State, Syracuse, and Miami to be in contact. I mean, that means you got some good players on your list. Also, offensive tackle Marlon Bright. He's announced he's committed, but he's exploring his options. I mean, that's kind of a common phrase used by some of these guys that want to, with 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But he comes at a premier position, not a lot of offensive tackle options out there. So there's no doubt that he's going to have a good bit of interest coming his way. So all that being said, the 2026 class has weathered the storm. I mean, 2026, 2027 is different for many reasons. One reason that the 2026 guys might all stick is because there's a reason why they committed to Penn State, right? That's the program they wanted to go to. It wasn't necessary. James Franklin had a lot to do with it, but maybe there's other reasons, and maybe there's already been plans. Like your parents have rented hotels for your freshman season. They want to be at every game. So there's just different reasons. And also 2027, I mean, they got, 15 months until they have to sign, whereas 2026 guys, they're signing in early December. That first Wednesday in December is coming quick. And unless you plan on hopping on a plane and going to see a bunch of schools, you might just want to stick with your decision. So what is next for Penn State recruiting? Well, I'm going to be honest with you here. In the short term, it's going to be scary. There might be some more decommitments. There's just not a lot of answers early on until there's a head coaching change. And I kind of compare this to the Tides. The Tide goes out, and that's where we are right now. It's scary. There's not a lot of optimism. You don't know when the next decommit will come. Everybody's looking down on the program. Everybody's talking about what went wrong. But then the Tide comes back in. That's when a coach is hired. That's when there's excitement. That's when there's hope. That's when there's optimism. That's when guys start committing again. That's when the newly hired coach starts using his ties to whatever area he came from, whatever school he came from, to bring in his guys. The excitement will be back in Happy Valley. But until then, I'm not going to lie, this is a precarious situation to sit in, especially for recruiting, because there's no leader. It's kind of a rudderless ship. I know there's an interim head coach and there's plenty of people on that recruiting staff, but let's be honest, they don't know for sure what their future holds. So they are going to do what it takes to represent the program in the right way in the meantime, while this gets sorted out. But really, until there's a new head coach, we could expect more decommitments. We'll continue to follow this thing. We'll see what happens, but I think all Penn State fans can agree what went down was probably necessary to get Penn State program back to where it needs to be and to ultimately to where it wants to be, and that's on the top of the ranking. So we'll continue to watch this story. We'll continue to watch and see if there's any more decommitments and what's going to happen with these big recruiting weekends that were on tap. We'll have to wait and see. So, Penn State fans, I want to hear from you. Who do you want as your next head coach? Does recruiting matter when it comes to who you hire as the next head coach? Let me know. Who's your top candidate? Put it in the comment section below. We are talking Alabama. Why? Because the third Saturday in October is almost here, which means a big visit weekend for this Tennessee game. We're going to go down to Tuscaloosa, talk with Tim Watts, Bama Online. We got a huge group of commits on campus, also some priority flip targets. We're going to get into it, but first, Bama fans, guys, do me a favor real quick. Smash that subscribe button. We love talking Bama recruiting, and we are going to do it all season long. All right, let's bring in the great Tim Watts. Huge group of commits on campus. Jaira Edwards, Jordan Edmonds, Xavier Crowell, Xavier Griffin. All the 5 stars are expected to be there, plus some more. Also some priority targets. We got a big-time official visitor on campus, defensive lineman Corey Howard, who's committed to Georgia. It seems like this recruitment is heating up, and this weekend he'll be in for an all-expenses-paid visit to Tuscaloosa. What's going on with Corey Howard and Bama?
Yeah, Bama was going to be the defensive line was going to be a focus for Alabama this year. They've done a really good job. Nolan Wilson from Mississippi, 2 in-state guys, and J.J. Finch, who I think is one of the sleeper underrated prospects in the nation from Indiana, Steve Wilfong's home city. And they're bringing in Corey. He's been committed to Georgia for a little while. Like him from Valdosta, big guy, kind of fits what they do, especially on that edge, that bandit. Has some position flexibility. Again, committed to Georgia. Bama's been working that relationship. Hasn't shut it down if he comes for this as he's expected to. He was at Georgia a couple of weeks ago. There is hope, I think, that he would shut it down, but he's going to visit Alabama, and so they're going to give it their best shot there.
All right. So, like you said, you said defensive line is a priority. I see another flip target going to be on campus, Caleb Morris. He's been committed to Mississippi State, but we've seen him take visits almost everywhere. Caleb Morris, I highly doubt, is sticking to Mississippi State. We see him in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Also, 3-star defensive lineman Cameron McGee. Where is Alabama at in the recruitment of these two? Are they kicking the tires? Are they priority? What are we looking at here?
I think it's just the getting to know you phase. They've seen enough of them to bring them on campus, and they'll bring guys in just to get to know them. Their mental, where they're at mentally, how they fit, would they fit in the locker room. So I think you're at that stage. I think Howard, out of the 3, has been the one they pressed more for. He's got the offer, but they're going to kick tires on everybody. And, the Grayson kid was previously committed to Arkansas. Caleb's committed to Mississippi State. So these are SEC caliber prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's turn the page to 2027, because that's really where the recruiting is going down. I mean, 2026, we're talking about teams putting those final touches on their class, but 2027 is red hot right now, and Rivals' number one quarterback is going to be on campus, Elijah Haven. Where do things stand in this recruitment? Because I know Trent Seaborn, who's from the state of Alabama, quarterback, is also going to be there. He's been flirting with Miami a little bit, but we've seen him at some of these Alabama games as well. So what do you make of Elijah Haven and Trent Seaborn on campus this weekend?
Yeah, I think Alabama, I mean, they're extremely particular with their quarterback process. Nick
Mm-hmm.
Sheridan's a big part of that. Last year's offensive coordinator. This year he's the offensive coach. Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator, is obviously a part of it. They're going to be very thorough. They'll go out in the spring unless they know they've got their guy. They're going to go out in the spring. They did it the last two cycles. I think it's maybe their best evaluated position on a staff that evaluates at extremely high level. You look at 2 cycles ago, you had Keelan Russell, went out and saw 4 or 5 guys. This year you see Jet Tamala, Tate, and Kawa. So you've seen them go out and dig those guys out. But it's been a little bit later. This would be an early commitment from anybody. As far as Haven goes, it looks like he's wide open. He's visited everywhere. I know Florida has been mentioned a lot. But I think this is, again, that get-to-know-you stage. Trent Seaborn, he's different. He's a local guy. He's an hour from Tuscaloosa. We've known about him since his 8th grade year when he led Thompson to a state championship. So he's more familiar with that. But I don't think Haven's been on in Tuscaloosa in over a year. So this would be a big trip for them. But again, they're going to go through that process. There's also in-state Gunnar Rivers, who's Phillip Rivers' son, who's a huge name. So there's guys in-state. There's guys out of state. They're going to kick the tires. They're going to, go through their process and find the one they like the best for them.
Yeah, it's just a massive visit weekend. You guys can go to Bama Online for more of these notes. But when it comes to 2027 headliners, what other names are going to be on campus that Bama fans need to know right now?
Yeah, I think Haven's going to be the biggest name. KJ Green's an interesting one. He's been on campus several times. Edge guy, kind of in that Wolf category. Christian Robinson does a good job there. He's a top 50 overall. And also this list is just, we're talking middle of the week. This list is going to change. There's a lot of big games where people are going to want to get kids on their campus. Bama will be looking, so that list could definitely extend.
All right. This is where I usually ask the fans here for their prediction on the game. It's only Wednesday. It might be a little early for you to give yours. You're probably going to do that on Bama Online on Friday, right? Or do you want to give us a prediction right now?
I put mine out on Tuesday. It was 41-31 Alabama. I love this game. Two of my brothers are Tennessee fans. My other brother was an Alabama fan. So very heated debate, respectful debate, but I love this game. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think Ty Simpson playing better each week. I like Bama at home. You guys, in the comments section below, how many points Bama going to win by on Saturday? Let us know. We got to talk Michigan recruiting. There's some 5-star buzz going on. Yes, Michigan did not have what it takes to beat USC last weekend, but they return home to host Washington. For a noon kick, we're also going to talk with E.J. Holland of the Wolverine about some of the big-name visitors on campus. But first, Michigan fans, do me a favor. We love talking Michigan recruiting, so jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in recruiting insider E.J. Holland, and we are talking 5-star running back, ex-Penn State commit, Kamon Spell. He hit the market when he decommitted after James Franklin got fired. And I immediately, maybe I'm wrong here, but I immediately associated him with Michigan. I know they have Savion Hyder committed, but do you think it's possible Michigan could land the number 1 running back in America in back-to-back years?
I think if any school can sell that, it is Michigan. They have the track record of featuring 2 running backs dating back to Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum. I mean, more recently, Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards. They've had success with 2 running backs. Tony Alford has proven to be one of the best running back recruiters in the country. Obviously, he's capable of landing the big fish. He did that at Ohio State with Travion Henderson. He did that at Michigan, obviously, with Savion Hyder this cycle. So with Michigan investing NIL at the running back position, I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think Spell has legitimate interest in Michigan. Even before he decommitted from Penn State, he had already set up a visit for the game against Ohio State on November 29th. So he is still coming in that weekend, that again shows there is legitimate interest there. I don't think Savion Hyder would mind. He likes keeping his legs fresh. I mean, he wouldn't mind being a part of an offense that again has proven success of featuring two running backs. And it looks like Spell isn't too scared off by the fact that Michigan invested so heavily in Savion Hyder. Now, will Michigan land Spell? Right now, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. I think other teams can do a better job of maybe selling him on being the featured back and being that real need where, other teams obviously didn't land a Savion Hyder this cycle. But if there's one team that can pitch that dynamic 1-2 punch, it is Michigan. So we'll see how that visit goes on November 29th. But I think if there's a school that can do it, it's Michigan. If there's a guy that can do it on the recruiting trail, it's Tony Alford.
Do you feel like this is shaping up to be a classic Ohio State-Michigan battle for Come On Spell?
Ohio State is certainly in play. I know he likes USC a lot. He's visiting Notre Dame this weekend. So there's plenty of competition. It'll be interesting to see he is a Pennsylvania kid. So it'll be interesting to see who Penn State hires if Penn State gets back in the mix there. Yeah. I do know that Notre Dame has been a major player. So I wouldn't say it's a straight up Michigan-Ohio State battle. I think there's other contenders there for sure.
All right. Now, let's talk about another flip target. We're talking LSU commitment, Havon Finney. You've got on here and talked a lot about remaining needs for Michigan in this 26th cycle, and one of them is cornerback. And Havon Finney is one of the top corners in the country, and it just feels like things are going to get crazy down the stretch. We're about 2 months from signing day, and Havon Finney he's looking around a little bit. So is there a chance that Michigan can get him on campus soon?
I think there's a chance. I know that our national analyst, Adam Gorney, he had an update with the sources close to Finney and his family, and it didn't seem like there was a lot there from a Michigan perspective, but you have to just look at the context clues here. Michigan went out to California for the game against USC. There's two top cornerback flip targets out there. Devon Benjamin, who's committed to Oregon, Havon Finney, who's committed to LSU. They did not visit Benjamin. They went all in on visiting Finney. Sharon Moore had a positive phone call with him. Again, they visited Finney on the road. They've had contact there with for several months behind the scenes, to be completely honest. So for Michigan to pass up visiting Benjamin and to focus on Finney, again, reading the context clues, you think there has to be something there. And I do buy it. Now, I'm not saying Michigan is going to go out and flip Finney, but Michigan, I don't think a lot of LSU fans were expecting Michigan to flip Bryce Underwood last cycle. They obviously did. I think that it is a possibility that they can flip Finney. They are, much like Bryce Underwood, they are going to be aggressive with NIL. You said it. Michigan's one of their biggest remaining needs. It's corner. It's corner right. And linebacker. They're going to spend at corner. So when Michigan gets aggressive with NIL, they're a scary team. You can never count them out. And we saw that last cycle, and I think you can see that this cycle at the cornerback position. They are looking for a big fish there. Finney has been at the top of the board since the offseason. There's a long-standing relationship. It's not like it's just a late push. We're throwing a bunch of money at you. The genuine relationship is there, and they will spend. And that combination, I think, can put Michigan in a position to get them on campus and ultimately complete the flip. But it will be a battle for the next couple months.
All right. So if corner is a position of need, so is linebacker when it comes to Michigan recruiting. So I like what you did with the context clue. So let's do the science here on Rivals 300 linebacker Braylon Hodge. Now, it depends on your perspective, right? He decommitted from Michigan State on Friday. Did he do that because he was coming off of his Michigan visit, or did he do that because he was about to take his Oregon trip? How did you see the Braylon Hodge decommitment on Friday?
I think if you want to be an ultimate optimist, you see it as Michigan made this huge impact. Now, I think that you kind of have to look at it from a level-headed perspective. He wasn't going to end up at Michigan State. When you had me on the show, week and a half ago, I told you this kid's not going to end up at
it was
Michigan
clear.
State.
Yeah, the signs were there.
the signs were, the context clues were there. So I mean, you look at Michigan State right now, they've lost their top commit 2 weeks in a row. Their big
Yeah.
time wide receiver commit is visiting Alabama this weekend. Michigan State, they're dumpster fire. So I don't think anybody wants to be there right now. As far as Braylon Hodges' recruitment, I don't think he decommitted because of Michigan's visit, but I do think Michigan made a really strong impression. Michigan is a finalist there, along with Oregon and Texas. I think this is more of a wait and see recruitment because he's so new to the big time recruiting process. I mean, let's face it, Michigan State, they're not on the same level as a Michigan or an Oregon or a Texas. Braylon Hodges' stock really rose here recently, so he's just getting familiar with these three finalists. So he made his official visit to Oregon this weekend. He's set to see Texas next before making that final decision. He's already been to Texas earlier this fall. So if any of the three programs have the most familiarity with Hodge, it's probably Texas. But I think he's looking at this from just a wide open point of view. He really wants to learn more and more about each program. He even talked about potentially coming back to Michigan for the game against Ohio State. If that happens, that's a very positive indicator for Michigan because he does want to make a decision before then, before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But the longer this one goes, the better for Michigan. It's a really, really tight race. So we'll see what happens again over the next couple of months. But Michigan is certainly right up there for Braylon Hodge.
All right, let's talk about this weekend. I know it's a noon kick, so it's not going to be like a prime time visit weekend, but you have confirmed a few big names on the Wolverine. You guys can go there for the full list. EJ, who's headlining this weekend's visit list?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a smaller list just because, noon kickoff, not super friendly for recruiting when you're a national program like Michigan. But they do have a flip target on campus this weekend. Sean Stover, 4-star offensive lineman, ranked pretty high. He's committed to Duke, has been committed to Duke for a long time. He values Duke's strong academics. Obviously, Michigan can offer the best of both worlds. Also has elite academics, but can offer better football. They have the better program than Duke. So I think that'll be really appealing, just the best of both worlds. So I think Michigan is definitely in the mix to flip Stover. We talked about how they're going to spend at corner, how they're looking for a top linebacker. I think for the offensive line, they want more of a developmental guy, a guy who kind of fits the culture. Stover is that. They have some elite underclassmen coming in as well. Wide receiver, imperative for Michigan to land a top wide receiver next cycle. You have to get Bryce Underwood some weapons. They have 2 top 100 wide receivers coming in this weekend, Matthew Gregory, Quinn Burrell. So those 2 will definitely be ones to keep an eye on. And then an elite quarterback, you have to find a successor for Bryce Underwood. Peter Bork is really good in 2027, but the big fish is in 2028, and that is Donald Tabron out of Cass Tech. He trained with Bryce Underwood. He looks up to Bryce Underwood as a big brother. Right now, he's ranked, I believe, number 29, which would put him in that 5-star range. He's every bit of that elite talent, the next great quarterback to come out of the Detroit metro area. So Donald Tabron will be a big, big focus for Michigan this weekend. I know 2028's down the line, but Michigan fans are already excited about Tabron. He'll be Michigan's most important target in 2028. So we'll be talking a lot about him soon, Josh. But that pretty much does it for the visitors. I think the bigger weekend may be for Purdue on November 1st.
All right, Michigan fans, talk to EJ and I. How are you guys feeling about number 1 running back Kamon Spell? Could it be back-to-back years with Michigan landing the top running back in America? Also, 2 major flip targets we talked about. You guys do the science in the comment section below. Havon Finney and Braylon Hodge, which one of the 2 or both will flip to Michigan? Let us know, comment section below. We got to talk some Notre Dame recruiting because the Irish and the Trojans face off this weekend in what feels like a de facto playoff game. And we also got Mike Singer here. He got some new predictions for Notre Dame recruiting. We're also going to review a big visit weekend. But before we do that, Irish fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. We love talking Notre Dame recruiting. All right, let's bring in Mike Singer of Blue and Gold. Big group of commits coming on campus. We know that, but there's an elite list of juniors in South Bend. No bigger than number one running back Kamon Spell, fresh off this decommitment from Penn State. Notre Dame ready to make a big impression here?
Yes, they absolutely are. And you got to remember when Spell committed to Penn State back in August of 2024, the running backs coach at the time for the Nittany Lions was no other than Jaywan Sider, who's, of course, holding that same position for Notre Dame. They've kept in close contact. That relationship is truly elite. Spell's tried to get to Notre Dame a couple times before, once in the spring, but then he visited Penn State right before he's going to go to Notre Dame and then shut down his recruitment. And here we are a few months later. So this visit is coming to fruition, and it really is a big deal for the Fighting Irish. He is as elite as they come as a ball carrier and a talent, and Notre Dame would be over the moon if they can make a big move from this weekend. Georgia and some others are not going to make that easy, of course, but that relationship between Sider and Spell is really big.
All right, two elite wide receivers I want to talk about. Two of the top 5 in the 2027 class will be on campus. Jameer Brown, the number 1 wide receiver, and then number 3, Monshun Sales. Let's start with Jameer Brown. I mean, obviously, Notre Dame would be over the moon to get both these guys. They need elite wide receivers, and here they are on campus. How deep does the relationship with Brown go?
Pretty deep. He goes to Wayne High School in Huber Heights, Ohio, which is, of course, where Marcus Freeman went to high school, and of course, where Notre Dame defensive backs coach Mike Mickens went to high school, and the head coach at Wayne High School, Roosevelt Mooks, was an assistant coach when Freeman and Mickens were on staff. So there is a ton of ties there. It's my understanding that Jameer Brown, his family goes way back with the Notre Dame staff as well, those guys, Freeman and Mickens. So ton of connections there. Now, how likely is this flip? Look, it's not very likely. But he keeps visiting Notre Dame. He was in South Bend back in the spring, and he's coming back this weekend. So it's like just keep bringing him to campus. I know he's got an Ohio State tattoo on his arm, but who knows? Who knows? All you can do is keep getting at bats. That's all you can ask for, and Notre Dame's getting one this weekend. So it's a big deal. And then with Sales, hearing around of the recruitment and then, talking to a rival, Steve Wiltfong, it seems like Notre Dame is in the hunt, but not maybe in the lead group.
Right.
But this is his second time visiting campus. He's this season, in-state kid. So we'll see what kind of move Notre Dame's able to make this weekend.
How crazy does it sound that this is an in-state battle for Monshun Sales?
It's crazy the amounts of elite Midwest talent there is in the 2027 class. Look, this is a night game for Notre Dame with USC coming in town, so you're able to attract more kids from across the country who can spend Saturday morning getting to South Bend. It's a lot more difficult to get to South Bend, at like a noon for a 3:30 kickoff, right? To get that full visit experience. But there are for all these day games Notre Dame's had, you've had big time prospects coming to campus because there's just so many good ones in the Midwest. So whether it's Chicago, guys coming in from Ohio, guys coming down from Indianapolis, whatever the case may be, it's been really impressive. And I've been covering Notre Dame for 6 years, a little over 6 years now, and I don't remember these kinds of recruiting weekends in the past. The kids are really liking Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman is a star as a head coach. It's been a lot of fun to cover too, Josh.
Yeah. And, Monshun Sales, though, it's also kind of significant. Indiana has a home game. They're one of the hottest teams in the country coming off that Oregon win, yet Monshun Sales not going to be at the Indiana game. He's going to Notre Dame. Just a huge list of names. Notre Dame fans, you guys need to go to Blue Gold right now. But, Mike, what other names should Notre Dame fans be excited about?
Pull up a chair. I mean, there's a ton to discuss. We just, broke down a couple 5 stars and Spell and Brown and then Sales. There are 2 other guys in the 27 class who are top 32 overall players, one of them being DJ Jacobs, a pass rusher from Blessed Trinity Catholic in Roswell, Georgia. Number 3 edge in the 27 cycle. Number 13 overall player, Chris Whitehead from Virginia. Number 27 overall player. Number 5 edge. And then, long list of commits. And that's something you don't want to forget, right? Because Kari Adams, Michigan would love to have Kari Adams. I don't think that they're going to be able to flip him, but hey, you need to keep getting your commits on campus.
Yeah.
Caden Finley, a Texas legacy who committed to the Irish over the Longhorns, he's coming back to campus. Bubba Frazier, he's having a tremendous senior season, the wide receiver from Georgia. You just got to keep getting these guys to South Bend. Preston Frizel, my coworker Kyle Kelly, this is an Ohio tight end who's committed to the Irish. Ohio State's starting to kick the tires. So as we are looking to 2027 and all these 5-star type guys who are coming to campus, don't forget about the 2026 commits. They're super important as well, because as good as this class is, other teams want to take those players from the Irish and put them in their recruiting class. Notre Dame's got to hold off those schools and getting them to campus again and reminding these players why you committed here. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. All right. So that being said, Mike, you have been on a roll when it comes to entering predictions in favor of recruits heading to Notre Dame. Tell the people about some of your latest picks. Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk game time, because the college football rivalry games are here, and who doesn't love to go see a live event, especially when you can go with a bunch of your buddies. But tickets aren't always going to be easy to find, and getting deals on last-minute tickets can be frustrating when all you want to do is be there for the moment your team runs out onto the field. Well, thankfully, the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing ticket experiences, and it only takes a few simple clicks. The app's easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. That's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. Also, one of the coolest features I've seen is the Game Time lowest price guarantee. It's where Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference to guarantee you are getting the lowest price if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere. All right, here's what we're going to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code INSIDESCOOP. That's promo code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. INSIDESCOOP. For $20 off Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Man, yeah. I kind of go on prediction sprees. Typically it's been in August in the past, but this year it's just a little bit later when it takes some time. So I've got, at the time of recording this, 8 in so far, and a 9th one will be coming on Wednesday night. The latest one.
What's the most controversial one so far?
Ooh, I mean, Quentin Burrell, a Chicagoland wide receiver. I know some folks think he's going to Michigan. I could definitely see that, but I like the Irish here. I think that Notre Dame's done the best job recruiting them, and I just think that he'll want to stay a little bit closer to home. I predicted Jalen Hill from St. John Bosco, cornerback, USC, Texas A&M, he likes a ton. I've got the Irish winning that one. I picked Xavier Hassan from North Carolina to Notre Dame. But here's a really interesting one, Josh. Amari Irvin is a 4-star linebacker at IMG Academy in Bradenton. Mm-hmm. That is a school that Notre Dame has not had success with. I think it's been 7 or 8 years that Notre Dame's landed a player from there. His older brother, Cedric Irvin Jr., was a Notre Dame commit, and the Irish parted ways with him. And he was in the 23 class, and he's now a running back still. He signed with Stanford, still there. So it's like, man, your older brother was a commit there. The two parties parted ways, and now, Mike, you think that his little brother is going to go to Notre Dame? I sure do. And he was just on campus this past weekend. Trip went great. And I'm liking that pick. So will I go 9 for 9? Probably not, Josh. Do I believe it right now? Heck yes, I do.
All right, Notre Dame fans, let's hear your predictions, not just your prediction on the game. I want to hear your prediction in recruiting. Just bring in all the predictions. Put them in the comment section below. Let's talk some Dogs recruiting, because Georgia is back in Athens this weekend, and it's going to be a top 10 showdown with Ole Miss. Got some important recruits on campus, so we're going to go behind the scenes in this video with Jeremy Johnson at Dogs HQ, get some intel on the biggest names on campus. But before we do that, UGA fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. We're almost to 100K, and we love talking Georgia recruiting. Speaking of, let's bring in Jeremy Johnson with Dogs HQ, and one of the biggest names on campus this weekend is expected to be 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis. But I want to talk about Jared Curtis is just having a monster season right now, Jeremy.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Some of the stuff I kind of watched his game from afar and on the broadcast the other night, and it was unreal. I mean, some of the throws he made, he's very poised in the pocket, big guy, strong arm, but like he knew that going into that game, it seemed like that he was going to have to put up points, and their offense was going to have to make plays, and some of the stuff he made look effortless was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't think I knew how good this guy was, and I don't think people really have seen how good he is yet. But he's a legitimately, if you think of what makes a 5-star quarterback,
right.
Jared Curtis comes up in your mind as far as the things that he has, at his disposal.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've heard from Charles Power, Director of Scouting and Rankings here at Rivals. He said the same thing, and maybe people just aren't talking about Curtis enough because he's not taking visits all over the country. But either way, having a 5-star season, that's what it's all about. All right, let's dig a little bit further into some of these big-name visitors on campus, and let's talk about 2027 number 2 tight end, Brock Williams. Really impressive, 6'5", 220 pounds, and he's coming to Athens from the state of Illinois this weekend. So this recruitment's getting pretty serious, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know he's cut it down, I think, maybe 5 or maybe even 3. But, Georgia's been on this guy for a long time. They've been one of his top schools since, I guess it would have been his sophomore year, beginning of his sophomore year. And anytime Georgia gets on a guy that early and starts to push, especially at that tight end position, first of all, he's a football player. And, I've had a chance to kind of watch his highlights and watch him play a little bit as well. He is every bit of one of the top tight ends in this class. And the fact that he's back, he's been on campus. I know he was at G-Day, I want to say this spring. I can't remember if he's been to a game this year, but him coming in this week for this Ole Miss game is going to be huge. I feel like Georgia's, one of the schools in this recruitment that are going to be tough to beat. I mean, We've seen what they've done at tight end over the last, I guess it would have been the last 10 years at this point. Georgia's always had a great history at tight end. You think about, Leonard Pope, Randy McMichael, some of these other guys have come through, Isaac Nada. So he's probably one of the next in line to be the key target for Georgia. I know he really likes Todd Hartley. I know, they've really recruited him really hard. So it's a big one. It's a big one. Anytime you get a guy from that part of the country to make that trip for a game, it's huge. So
yeah, he's taken his own time, his own money to travel down there, and at 6'5", 220 pounds, you can see exactly why Georgia's involved here. All right, let's talk about safety, Kamari Dorsey. He is a top 50 player overall, so we're talking top 1% of 1% of players in the 2027 class. He's also Rivals' number 1 ranked safety. Georgia is in a good spot here, Jeremy?
Yeah, I would say so. I know Georgia has been on his mind, has been on his radar for a while. They offered, I want to say last year sometime during the season, I believe, but they've been recruiting him really hard. He's a unique player. He's almost 6'4", almost. Their safeties don't come that big anymore, and he can do a lot of different things. So he's been a priority. He's been on campus twice already this year. I think the writing's kind of like, hey, this is a team to beat here. I don't know if they're the top team, but they are definitely recruiting him as hard as anyone, and he's definitely very much interested in what Georgia has to offer culturally, but also just, from a defensive standpoint. And I know, every year Georgia has that one guy in state, especially defensively, that they kind of hone in on. But this might be that guy for this 2027 class.
Makes sense. Could also be one of those guys that comes in, makes an instant impact. Another big name I saw on the list was offensive tackle Joshua Sam Appel. I know Georgia's been doing some work there in the 2027 cycle, but I wanted to talk about a 2026 prospect real quick, Tyreek Jemison. This one's interesting. He's a Kentucky decommitment. He's from Dallas, Georgia. He goes 6'5", 300 plus. After decommitting from Kentucky, how big of a priority has Georgia made Jemison?
It sounds like they've gotten on him really quickly.
Yeah.
He'd been talking to Georgia for about a week or two before he announced his decommitment, and I don't think Georgia was even thinking, hey, he's about to decommit. He said that was something that was kind of completely separate of each other. And the fact that he was able to get a visit scheduled to come on campus this week was pretty quick. Kind of tells you what they think of him and what he kind of thinks of Georgia. Ole Miss is also really recruiting him as well, so that this is an opportunity for him to see both programs. Georgia has not offered yet, but that could change this weekend. Getting to see him in person. So there's always been a little bit of a relationship there. Georgia's been in communication, throughout the last couple of years. He's an in-state guy, so they've seen him. He's been on campus before, so
Yeah.
I do feel like eventually this will be, someone to watch. He says they're looking at him as potentially a tackle or guard. So, that was, to me, was interesting because I know Georgia is in search of a second tackle, but the guard thing, is something that's very interesting, especially, obviously they have Ekene Okpoko committed already as the other tackle. So it makes sense to maybe have a guy that can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. All right, so when we talk about rounding out the 2026 class, obviously they'd like to land a Jemison, another offensive lineman, put in the trenches, but what's the plan at linebacker? Because this week there's a major development. Shadarius Tootle flipped to Auburn, flipped back to Auburn. He flipped from Auburn to Georgia in late June. Now he's back with the Tigers. I mean, all you can do is really shake your head there. But also, Nick Abrams is looking around. He's out of the DMV area, out of Maryland, and he's got trips planned. He's been taking visits. So what is the plan for Georgia at linebacker? Hey, football fans, whether you're cheering on the Tennessee Titans or the New England Patriots on Sunday, October 19th, make sure to drop by the Whataburger food truck during your tailgate and get ready to bring home the W early with a hot, fresh Whataburger in hand. No matter who comes out on top, when you take your team to Whataburger, you know you'll be feeling like a winner with food made fresh and hot every time, 24/7. See you at the game, and we'll see you at Whataburger.
I think the first thing is to try to keep Nick Abrams in the class. Like, that's where you go all in right now.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep the guy you got. Obviously, everyone's going to look at Tyler Atkinson and say, well, do things heat up there? I think the ship has sailed there. I've always thought of Tyler Atkinson as a guy that once he commits, that's where he's going. I mean, that's just the type of person he is. He did it in his high school. When he went to Grayson wasn't the powerhouse they are now. Like, they had a little transition period between coaches, and Tyler Atkinson went there and helped turn that into it. Now they're one of the top teams in the country. So I don't see him being, a real option. I think Georgia will probably be in communication, but I don't think there's anything there. But, I think senior evaluations, there's always a guy or two, especially in state here in Georgia. You'll find a guy or two that pops up that's having a really great senior year. Maybe a guy that, maybe you had in camp that you kept tabs on that will emerge. Those names haven't started to emerge yet, but I'm sure we'll probably see, hey, in the next week or two, we'll see an offer here, an offer there. And then we'll start to see how that develops. You got basically 2 months until the early signing period opens. So, that's enough time to get a guy or two on campus and kind of, start building that towards trying to get that second guy at linebacker. But Nick Abrams has definitely got to be the priority. Keeping him in.
Well, we got a big weekend coming up in Athens. You guys can go find more on Dogs HQ. Jeremy Johnson, Rusty Manziel, and the boys do a heck of a job. Jeremy, thanks for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for having me.
Talking Nebraska recruiting, and we might as well because the Husker season is heating up, a 5-1 record. And then Penn State fires James Franklin. In the whispers, they are getting louder about Matt Rule, obviously his ties to Penn State. So we are going to go behind the scenes of all this with Greg Smith, national analyst here at Rivals. He wrote a great article about Nebraska recruiting and kind of how it has to do with Penn State's coaching search as well. So before we get into it, Nebraska fans, hit subscribe. We're having a great season with the Huskers, and we love talking Nebraska recruiting. All right, let's bring in Greg Smith, national analyst. Greg, are these unfounded rumors, or is this kind of a sign of how sped up things are? Because we're in mid-October, and we're talking coaching carousel.
Yeah, I can't believe that we're here already. First of all, thanks for having me on. But I can't believe we're here already. But yeah, things are definitely sped up, and things are lightning speed considering, James Franklin was a game away from the national championship last year and is now out of a job. Was, one bad interception away from potentially taking down Oregon 3 weeks ago and is now at home watching with us. Like, it is pretty crazy out there.
And here we are talking about Nebraska, and how they're involved. And obviously Matt Rule, there's numerous reasons why he would consider Penn State, a lot of personal ties, but also professionally. So how do you feel right now about Rule's recruiting at Nebraska to this point? And does he want more NIL backing, something he could possibly get at Penn State?
Yeah, at first I think that his recruiting has been fine at Nebraska. Like it has been enough for them to continue to be on that upward trajectory. As we see them sitting at 5-1 right now, we feel like we could be in the middle of that magical year 3 Matt Rule season, right? That we talked about at his previous stops at Baylor and going back to Temple. But there is obviously another level that he wants this recruiting to go to. And you can kind of see that with who they're trying to bring in for the 2027 class and beyond. Yeah. When it comes to the NIL dollars, though, like it's tricky, right? People, when NIL kind of first came down, a lot of people, including myself, said, hey, Nebraska will be a team that really stands to benefit from the NIL era because of the fervent fan support that they have, which is true, but they still have been hesitant to really give. And I think that the fans, the everyday fans, will do it, but they don't necessarily have the big money donors that some of these other schools have. Mm-hmm. And ironically enough, James Franklin was actually kind of complaining about this too, right? He wanted more NIL dollars too. So I definitely think that will play a role in all of this. No matter what happens with Matt Rule going forward, he's going to get his NIL dollars from somebody.
Yeah. And, I almost feel like Nebraska and Penn State are almost on equal footing. It's like neither of them have the huge dollars that, say, an Oregon or Texas have, but they have plenty of money to compete with some of the best programs in America. And one of the things, you're right, Nebraska does have a great 2027 class already started here. And one of the things that Matt Rule has done a good job of is landing that premier quarterback. Every other year, you got to kind of bring in a ton of talent, and backing up with Dylan Raiola, he's got Trey Taylor coming in this 2027 class. So he's off to a great start. What are recruits saying about Nebraska, and who else are they sitting in good shape with early on?
Yeah, one of the things that I hear consistently from recruits, and they've done a good job of getting these guys out to Lincoln to see the campus. Yeah. But one thing that Nebraska always has to get over, and this, is kids don't understand the history of Nebraska because of how long it's been since they were a real player. And they don't understand necessarily that Nebraska has like $150 million new facility that's going on out there because they just don't have a concept of what Nebraska's like. So you always have to get over that hurdle. So getting these kinds of kids on campus has been a really big deal. And they're right in it, with 4-star running back Isaiah Rogers, 4-star Pennsylvania wide receiver Matthew Gregory in the 27 class, Ahmad Hudson, who's our number 1 tight end out of Louisiana, Kennedy Brown, the 5-star offensive tackle, Mark Matthews, another 5-star offensive tackle. Like the one thing too about all of these kids that I just mentioned, they've all been on Nebraska's campus at least one time already. So Nebraska has done a good job of planting the seed of getting these guys interested, getting them on the hook, getting them on campus. But I think this all circles back to something that I think we have to kind of consider what we started off talking about was Matt Rule and the NIL dollars, because he sees things and where they're going to go. And he's going to need a lot of money to be able to land at least 1 or 2 of these guys and pull them away from schools like Georgia and LSU and Texas.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, guys like Kennedy Brown, you don't land Kennedy Brown on signing day. The work has to start now. So if Nebraska is going to have any chance, getting guys like that on campus now is the only way. And that's exactly what they're doing. So let's take this thing full circle. What's your feel for Penn State coaching search? Do you think that we're going to continue to hear Matt Rule's name until a hire's made? Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk game time. The MLB playoffs, they're here. They're almost done. And who doesn't love to see a playoff game, especially when you can go with a bunch of the buddies? But tickets are never easy to find, and getting deals on those last-minute tickets can be frustrating when all you want to do is be there for the moment your team runs out on the diamond. Well, thankfully, the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans, and it's the hack for unlocking amazing ticket experiences, and it only takes a few simple clicks. The app's easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and also at the best price. Plus, the fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. That's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. Also, one of the coolest features I've seen is the Game Time lowest price guarantee. It's where Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference to guarantee you are getting the lowest price if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to download the Game Time app. You're going to create an account and use promo code INSIDESCOOP. That's promo code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. INSIDESCOOP. Terms apply. For $20 off Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Yes, I think that Matt Rule will be a candidate for that job until someone else gets up there or he gets up there and is introduced as the next Penn State head coach. I just think it makes too much sense. I know people around here in Lincoln think that it's low-hanging fruit, that, hey, you know, I know he loves the university and he met his wife there and he's best friends with the AD. Well, that's a lot of stuff when you start to add that up, right? Like, he's going to definitely be a candidate for that job. There'll be other names. Obviously, I think they're going to contact Kirk Cignetti. I'm not sure that he needs to leave anywhere, which is something we could have a whole discussion about how crazy it is that we're saying Kirk Cignetti is in a perfect spot at Indiana and has turned them into a football school. But a guy like Matt Campbell, who also wants more, financial support for his school, who keeps seeing his recruits get poached by bigger schools with deeper pockets. Pat Fitzgerald could end up being a dark horse name there. But no, Matt Rule will definitely be a name to watch in this thing until the very end.
Yeah, and Nebraska fans, talk to us. How are you guys feeling? What does this mean? Because it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? A 5-1 record brings this sort of rumors alive. Mm-hmm. If they were 1-5, you would not be hearing Matt Rule's name coming up with any coaching searches. So we find ourselves in a precarious situation. But Nebraska fans, how do you guys feel about this? And how do you feel about the season? Let us know. Comment section below.